Good evening, and we're gonna start. This is not our first event, but actually this is our first live on Facebook, and we're doing a bit of a testing to see how this works for us. Good evening. My name is Dani Beit-Or. I'm the founder and of SimplyDoIt, our company. We work with others and help them invest in real estate. And I'm gonna try and actually make it a bit short and to the point today. Hopefully, take some questions if we have. The topic I wanted to talk about today is something that comes up quite a lot from the sessions that we're holding, the one-on-one sessions that we're holding with our investors, and it's something that usually comes a bit later in the process of investing, and it's all about the cash flow, actually. A lot of the transactions that we're doing, the rental properties out of state. I'm based in California. Everything we do is out of state, rentals and flips. A lot of those rental properties, when you buy them with a mortgage, you're actually going to get realistically a small positive cash flow. Let's just call it on average $200 a month, right? Sometimes it could be $150, it could be $300. Let's just call it $200 a month. But that, and every once in a while I get, and by the way, if you're here and you're seeing us, please put a comment, say, hey, I'm here, nice to see you. Have questions, that would be just terrific to see. For me, it's impossible to see who's online. So if you are able to do that, that's terrific. Just type something, say, hey, introduce yourself. By the way, even if you're on the recording and you're watching this, do the same. Watched it. My name is John. I'm from Boston, whatever. So what I see is when our investors start investing or getting to the point they're asking about themselves, about the cash flow, they're saying, listen, why would I trouble with all of this for $200 a month, right? It just seems like pointless. And that's a very good point. A lot of investors think that they should go after the cash cow. The cash cow is usually a property that is really strong with cash flow. Let's just say you buy an $80,000 home or a $70,000 home, and maybe not even with a mortgage, or maybe and it's generating $300, $400, $500 a month in cash flow. That's what usually is considered the cash cow. It's very strong on the cash flow. The problem is a couple of things here that you want to consider. Number one, from my experience throughout the country, in the US, I've been doing it for many years. When you buy a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 house, that usually comes in this flavor. It's an older home, smaller home, 2-1, 3-1, 2-2, something like that. Not necessarily a bigger house, and not typically in a good area. And I'm not talking about if you're lucky and you got something at the auction and you were lucky enough to get it so cheaply, and then you still have to put $30,000 into it, so it's no longer a $60,000 investment, it's already a $90,000 investment. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you place it into rental, and let's just say it costs you $70,000. Usually it means not a very good area, not necessarily a bad area or a crime, like really, really, terrible area, but it's usually low rank schools. Social economic, of that profile of that area is going to be lower income, not low income, lower income. It's not necessarily a really good area to begin with. It could still work as an investment. But then you may ask yourself, if I'm putting $70,000 and I'm generating cash flow after everything, not the rent, cash flow, very important distinction. If you're looking at that and say, hey, what am I doing this when I can buy a $70,000 home and rent it for $700 and generate $450 a month? That's a better cash flow. That sounds more attractive. There may be some truth to it. However, when you're looking at the $150,000 home with a mortgage, and that mortgage comes in, after all expenses, you're generating $200 a month, then that house doesn't seem very appealing cash flow wise, right? So cash flow is not a very attractive investment to begin with. But are you really looking at the entire ordeal here and the entire bigger picture here? Because when you're looking at the $200 a month cash flow, that actually is really after a lot of factors taking place. For example, that house, the cash flow factors the fact that you already paid your mortgage principal. So when you buy a house for 150 and your mortgage is 130 or 125, you're borrowing $125,000 to purchase that house. Every time you get the cash flow is after you paid a portion, smaller one or bigger one, towards your mortgage principal, right? So remember that money that you actually borrowed to begin with, and then you paid it through your rent. The rent that came in already paid that, and you are, and when everything is paid off, you're keeping $200. That's really something to remember. Also, look at the bigger picture in terms that you can look at what this house is going to do for you. So even if you're buying, let's just say, take an example. Let's just say you buy a $70,000 cash house, $70,000 house in not so good area, and another $150,000 home in a better area. Better being better schools, better income per household, and all of that things. A better house, nicer house, bigger house, a newer house. Altogether a better investment. Even if this area is appreciating, identically, right? The $70,000 home is going to appreciate, let's just assume, on a 5% rate, and the $150,000 home is going to appreciate on a 5%. 5% per year, the $70,000 home, that makes it $3,500, appreciation per year, or just about. The $150,000 loan, that's a $7,500 appreciation, right? So when you put $30,000 down, $35,000 down on that house, the ROI, the return on investment for that house, is much higher percentage-wise versus that in a nice house for the other house for $70,000. So if we are really focused on the cash flow, buying a $150,000 home with a mortgage is not a cash flow game. You're missing the point. The bigger point is you're buying a nice house in a nice area, which probably will appreciate even better than the $70,000 home. That's usually what happens, and that will work in your favor. So if you're looking short term and you want cash in your pocket, that's your focus and that's what you want to accomplish as an investor, then absolutely, go to the cheaper houses. But if you are looking on the long play and say, listen, this $200 a month that this house is generating is nice to have. It's a little bonus, a perk, but it's not something that I really need in my life, but it's good to have. And that house for 150 is probably going to be a much better long-term, investment, because at the end, in 15, 20 plus years, that house is going to be paid off, right? When you start paying it off, and it's going to be worth, double or more than the $70,000 home. Okay, so it's very important to keep that in mind and not focus all your energy on that cash flow. Of course, in an ideal world, I would love to see this $150,000 home generating $500 a month in cash flow. Of course, I would want that, but it usually doesn't happen. It does happen, right? I have an investor who bought a house in Dallas. The plan was to have $200 or $250 a month in cash flow, and he told me about 7-8 months ago, we had a conversation, and he said, I'm actually generating $500 a month in cash flow. That wasn't the plan. That's a fluke in the system, so to speak, a good one, but I don't really see that on an ongoing basis. Usually 150, 200, 250 or so is the real cash flow, but that cash flow really factors, the fact that you pay off, the mortgage, the principal payment, and you get to keep more in the asset, not necessarily in the pocket. If you have any questions, by all means, put them on the chat. I want to keep it short and to the point. This is our first, not our first event or live event or webinar, but it's the first time I'm using this tool of Facebook Live. So it's a little bit still not, we're still kind of getting learning the nick of it. So if you have any question or you want to introduce yourself, please put a comment. I'll be happy to take that, to respond to that. And I'll just wait here for a second or a minute and see if something comes in. Okay, in that case, I'm gonna say good, have a good night, and I hope to meet you next week when we're going to have another little topic, cover something specific regarding investing. And you're most welcome to send your post your questions, even if you're watching the recording and not the live event. Have a terrific night. Bye bye.